I've enjoyed a lot of the recent debate online about men going their own way. It's been pretty robust and healthy with a couple of inconsequential exceptions, and a lot of insight has been shed on the idea of what happens both individually and culturally when a man chooses to opt out of the prevailing social structure, when he in fact eschews a life dedicated to women or even corporate pursuits in the big machine we now call modern society. There has been conflict of opinion from what I think are thoughtful people, which is the best or at least most interesting kind of debate, and it prompted me to set my ideas on the subject to paper and bring them to you in a video for your consideration. First, there are a couple of matters of self-disclosure that I think are important to put on the table up front. One, I'm a big fan of the concept of men going their own way. I think it is the most honest and ultimately functional response for individual men, particularly young ones, to the current sexual zeitgeist, which is decidedly user-unfriendly for men in its current state. Second, I'm in a long-term relationship. I have been with the same woman for 11 years. I don't think that precludes me from being a man going his own way, but I do think it's worth mentioning because I'm sure that in the eyes of some, that would put my perspective into question. That being said, let me start by saying that I think the current debate has been obfuscated by conflating the idea of a man going his own way with simply evaluating any individual man's decision to go through life without a relationship with a woman or even as a celibate. It seems to me, though I might be mistaken, that most of the philosophical head bashing has been happening around the idea of rejecting women romantically, and that this issue is getting painted onto the go your own way phenomenon as a whole, when that phenomenon is a bit more complicated than just whether or not a man has sex. But still, that leaves the question, should a man reject the idea of female companionship, romance, marriage, sex, or anything else that would make him vulnerable to the very real risks that come with relationships in this day and age? My answer is the same that it always has been for that question. Whose business is it other than the man making his own decision in the first place? Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that men like Critical G are out there contributing to this discussion, and I'm glad for now that we mostly have the freedom to express these ideas. But as I listened to his take on the matter, what I actually heard was a more subtle and watered-down version of the same sentiments expressed by people like Bill Bennett and Kay Heimowitz, who have specialized in feeding shame sandwiches to men who don't want to, quote, man up, unquote, by finding a woman to take care of and making babies with her that he also has to take care of even after she kicks him to the curb. I just don't get it. With the depth of knowledge now available about men's issues, why anyone allegedly aware of those issues, much less sensitive to them, would be hawking a message to men, instructing them how to live their lives. Makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. In my opinion, which is admittedly anything but humble, men have had quite enough of that kind of crap from a misandric culture that has no other purpose but to bleed them dry. Now, I'm not going to jump on the I'm all concerned about where the MRM is going bandwagon by saying that hearing these ideas from MRAs makes me concerned about where the MRM is going. I'll just say that when I hear this stuff, I'm going to express my view that it's nonsense. I will also tell you the reason I am not concerned and why I don't think anyone else should be. It is because men going their own way, or if you prefer, men who are choosing to walk away from any kind of romantic commitment or involvement with women, is not a phenomenon that anyone is going to control or direct from a website or from their YouTube channel. It is happening no matter what any one of us has to say about it, and there's nothing anyone can do to change that. Men are opting away from romance and marriage because it is a corrupt, toxic environment that carries a ridiculous amount of risk, particularly in relation to the possible reward. That is what is driving men away from it, not the words of Barbarossa and Stardust. All these guys do is explain what's happening and to some degree document it. Well, they're also very helpful in helping men who listen to them shrug off the shaming control messages from people who feel threatened by men who choose their own path in life, which I think is a valuable social service. Saddling them with some kind of power over the decisions coming from men about their own lives makes about as much sense as saying it's a man's world because most politicians are men, which is about as myopic a message as you will ever hear. That being said, I feel the same way about men who choose to be with women, get married, have children, raise families, etc. I don't recommend that stuff, but it's essentially no one's business but theirs. AVFM supports men and fathers, married and single, because we are not in the business of telling men what they should be. And again, I would respectfully submit to anyone that the only people that I completely distrust on sight are those that constantly put adjectives in front of the word man. Words like good and strong and especially real. It's all bullshit designed to control and shame. And for the most part, when you hear people talking about what they think men should do, especially in regards to women, it's all part of the same shaming pathology. The only thing I think men should do is peel back the scales from their eyes and make conscious decisions about what they want in life while being fully aware of the risks of those decisions. Oh, and I think they should be prepared to tell me or anyone else who attempts to manipulate them into a different path than what they chose to go find someone else to fix. Now, do I have any criticism of the philosophy I've heard articulated from some of those who put out their ideas on men going their own way? Well, yeah, I do. For instance, one of the things I see that appears contradictory or at least poorly thought out is a sentiment that while men can eat a red pill and somehow shed 3 million years of socialization and sociobiological programming to go on to be free of their genetics and social conditioning, when they talk of women, it is all doom and determinism. Hypergamy rules in every woman or nearly every woman, and the chances of you not being bit by it are slim to none. I find that very difficult to believe that in the male sex of the species that determinism is not a real factor, but for females it is. It sounds like groupthink and bias to me. Now, I didn't set out to dissect this aspect of the discussion here as it would require too much of a diversion, but I did want to establish one point of contention in the things I see expressed online from men who identify as going their own way. In the long run, though, that is not what is important here. The biggest problem here, in my opinion, why I think this inconsistency has not been adequately challenged is because we don't have any real options for men. Do I think that Critical G, since he seems to be dispensing advice that men should not avoid lives with women, has any kind of plan that assures men a reasonable chance at protection from the possible fallout of making choices as he would make them? No, I'm sure he doesn't. Does anyone else telling men to not give up on women, to have a path for them to walk, that it has at least the promise of reducing a man's chances that it will lead to a brick wall? No, they don't. And anyone who tells you they do is just plain full of it. There is no shortage of that out there. About a year ago, I got involved in a debate with a man from the game community who tried to feed me a shame on rye with fries by saying that if I just had game, a woman would never want to leave me and take my shit with her. Yeah, he was serious. I asked him what he was going to do if he ever ended up alongside millions of other men in one of our family courts. I asked him what he was going to do with game there. You know what he said? I'll game the judge. I can't make that kind of stupid up. The point here is that no one, not me, not Critical G or Bernard Chapin or anyone else, has a way to help men avoid the gauntlet of possible problems that stem primarily from their relationships with women. And to be clear, for those who will intentionally misinterpret what I'm saying, I'm not talking about risk elimination. I'm not talking about guarantees. What I'm talking about is the fact that in today's world, the choice for men to put themselves into legally vulnerable positions with women can rightfully be called stupid. There is just too much to lose. Reputation, children, property, income, and freedom. Even your life. All of it can be taken simply because she wants to. If you can deny that or forget to fully consider it when rendering your advice to men, then I see no reason to trust you to add two and two. Telling men that there's something wrong with them for saying no thank you to that scenario strikes me as egregiously ignorant of men's issues and their needs in this culture. It also strikes me as futile. If you're telling men to not go their own way, but rather to go your way, you're simply wasting your time. As I said before, this is a phenomenon that is happening, and it is far, far beyond the reach of YouTubers and other social prognosticators. And from where I'm sitting, that's a really good thing. The last thing that men need in modern culture is more men that will walk them into that brick wall. More than enough of that stuff going on as it is. And that's it for me today. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great one.